This podcast is brought to you in part by Russell Lands, Coke, Buffalo Wild Wings, Southern Immediate Care, Guaranteed Labels, Central State Bank, Sunrise Docks, Dr. Thomas Dudney, and the Green Monster Fishing Light. Now, back to Bubba on the Lake.
B-U-double-B-A on the lake, hey. Wishing I could listen to the show every day, hey. Gotta hear what Bubba and his buddies gotta say on B-U-double-B-A on the lake. In the mellow yellow studio, putting on a show. Betty say, what? She always on the go. We got Hunter Bus sitting at master control. Don't wanna miss a moment, cause Bubba's got the flow. B-U-double-B-A on the lake, hey. Wishing I could listen to the show every day, hey. Gotta hear what Bubba and his buddies gotta say on B-U-double-B-A on the lake, hey. B-U-double-B-A, hey. B-U-double-B-A, hey. B-U-double-B-A, hey. B-U-double-B-A on the lake, hey.
Hello again, everybody, friends, neighbors, and associates everywhere. I'm your semi-retired, mostly washed-up host, formerly of the Rick and Bubba Show, and now your commander and captain of Bubba on the Lake, also known as the People's Podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being a part of it. Our website is bubbaonthelake.com. You can drop me a message, Bubba at bubbaonthelake.com. And, of course, we have our message line. We always enjoy hearing from you at 308 Big Lake, but have your thoughts together. You only have 30 seconds. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and all that other stuff you need to do to stay up to date with this podcast, and we certainly appreciate you and the sponsors that make it possible. Well, we got a lot going on. We've got a really good podcast today. This is one I've been looking forward to, and we did a lot, and we've done so much, we're going to have him back on and have a part two. Joe Scott Morgan, many of you know him if you're into true crime. He has a podcast called Body Bags with Joe Scott Morgan, and or Body Bag. I need to get the right name of that. And you see him on Fox, CNN, Nancy Grace. He's on all of these high-profile investigative shows. He's a medical examiner, investigator, and he has worked thousands of cases and now consults and does media on so many of them. He's a very, very interesting guy. Very fortunate that we have him at Jacksonville State University. He's there, and they're doing a lot with him. They're building a whole program around what he's doing. So, and we're going to let him tell you more about that. Also, we have a new national champion in basketball. Congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines on a great run. Now, we had our Bubba on the Lake bracket challenge going, and we have a winner. His name is Tyler Brown. Get this, he is a student at Ohio State, okay? He is a Buckeye, but he picked Michigan to win in his bracket. And for that, he's going to win $500 and go into Bubba's Hall of Fame that will be there forever and ever, hopefully. As long as the webpage is up, he will be enshrined in that, and that's going to be cool, too. And we're going to talk to him on an upcoming podcast. We've got so much to cover in this one with Joe Scott. We're going to push him back to the next one because I want to give him plenty of time and talk to him. And it is kind of funny that an Ohio State student had to pick Michigan, and how tough was that for him to do that? But he's got 500 reasons now why that was a good choice. So we'll catch up with him on the next one also. Let's see. What else do we have going on? We've got a lot to tell you about. Russell Marine is having their yearly in-water boat show. It's coming up this month. It will be Friday through Sunday, April the 24th through the 26th at the Ridge Marina, of course, here on beautiful Lake Martin. Now, folks, I got to tell you, of all the events we have every year, the in-water boat show may be my number one, okay? It's the largest in-water boat show in the Southeast. You can explore over 100 boats in the water and another 100 up on dry land. They've got this season's most talked about models from the top brands like Bennington, Nautical, Sea Ray. You can even test ride brand new 2026 Sea-Doo. Okay, so they let you test them in the water on their demo course. So bring your bathing suit and be ready to go. It's a perfect weekend for the whole family, featuring live music, great food, Chick-fil-A, Las Latina Kitchen. They'll have a massive vendor village. Plus, you can score big discounts up to 20% off selected boats and grab early season deals on gear from Yeti, Costa, and all of those. That's going to be going on too. Head to the Russell Marine website to RSVP, and you'll be entered to win a Turtle Box speaker. And that is going to be April 24th through the 26th. In-Water Boat Show, one of my favorite events of the year. It may be the most favorite event of the year. So if you're anywhere close to Lake Martin, I would invite you to come for that weekend. They actually have, and I've talked about this before, they do... You know how you will see models on a catwalk? They'll come down and turn around and go back and show you what they're wearing. They do that with boats. They'll actually have a show, and the boats will come out, and they will tell you about the boats, and they will spin around and drive back by you, just like it's a runway. It's one of my favorite things. I love it. I really do. It's always a lot of fun. Russell Marine's In-Water Boat Show, April 24th through the 26th. I will be there. Hope to see you there too. It's a fun time. Everybody's getting ready for summer, and I've been out on the boat a few times, and oh my gosh, I forgot how much I love being on the boat, on the water. I can't really think of anything that I enjoy from a fun standpoint much more than that I could at least mention on this podcast. So it is one of my one of my all-time favorites, and we hope to see you there. So we'll be back in just a minute. We're going to get started with Joe Scott Morgan, true crime. If you love that, you're going to love this. He's a medical examiner, and he is a broadcast rock star, and we're glad to have him with us. We'll be back in just a minute here on Bubba on the Lake.
1, 2, 3, 4.
We'll be right back.
What a matchup we've got, folks. Just nonstop action. The energy is electric and the fans are all in. An intense game like this calls for a Coca-Cola. Ah, crisp and refreshing. That's a game changer. Yeah, that taste scores every time. And just like that, they're back at it. Passionate fans and an ice-cold Coca-Cola. Now that's a winning combo. No matter the team, no matter the sport, everyone knows fan work is thirsty work. Enjoy a Coca-Cola.
When you need urgent care, Southern Immediate Care is here for you. Illness doesn't follow a 9-to-5 schedule, so we offer support 7 days a week at convenient locations throughout Birmingham and Northeast Alabama, dedicated to serving all ages from children to adults. Southern Immediate Care offers occupational medicine services, including DOT physicals and testing. At Southern Immediate Care, your health is our top priority. Visit southernimmediatecare.com or call 205-409-2794.
At Central State Bank, we believe community banking is more than just transactions. It's about relationships. For over 100 years, we've been helping neighbors grow, businesses thrive, and dreams become reality. Because when you bank local, you invest in your community. Central State Bank, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Visit us today or learn more at centralstatebank.com. Member FDIC.
Folks, we are back, and we have a very special guest, someone that I've wanted to have on the podcast for quite a while, Joe Scott Morgan. Now, if you are a true crime fan and a true crime podcast listener, you already know who Joe Scott Morgan is. But let me tell you a little more about him. He is a renowned American forensic expert, author, and distinguished scholar of applied forensics at Jacksonville State University, with a career spanning over 2 decades, including time as a senior senior investigator in Fulton County, Georgia. I can only imagine what that was like, and New Orleans, and has worked thousands of death investigations. He's widely known for hosting Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan, the podcast, and you will not be able to cut on cable news without seeing him on Fox, CNN, Nancy Grace, or any other show that is discussing some kind of crazed killing going on. Joe Scott Morgan, how are you, sir?
Hey, Bubba. Good to be with you, my man. And I got to tell you, I don't want nobody sending me no bills for the television monitors in our houses that have been subjected to this. I did not bust them intentionally. That was not my intent, in doing it. So, what can I say? That's just the way it is. And also any kind of psychological scarring they may have been subjected to.
Well, that's one of the things
that comes out of my mouth.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was worried about. We had a brief discussion a few weeks ago, and we'll cover that in a minute. But for those that do not know who you are and have not seen you on TV, give everybody a little bit of a background, where you're from, and how did you end up in Jacksonville, Alabama. We're going to cover your association, what you're doing with Jacksonville State also, but just give us a little background.
Okay, so back when dinosaurs were on the earth, I was born in Monroe, Louisiana, right along the I-20 corridor. I'm sure a lot of the listeners are familiar with Monroe. If you've ever been up and down I-20, you have to go right through it. When my daddy got home from Vietnam, he moved us to Georgia when I was about 7 or 8, and then left us, me and my mama. And I grew up in Georgia. I consider myself a native Louisianian. Most of my kinfolks are down in South Louisiana, and so it was a natural thing for me that when I got old enough, I migrated back down to South Louisiana, and I lived down there for many years. I still go. I consider New Orleans home. No matter where I go, that's where I claim home, and my people are still down there. Try to get back down there as much as I possibly can, and let's see what else. I started my career down there. I was with the Jefferson Parish Coroner's Office, which kind of hard. If you're familiar with the New Orleans metro area, it's the parish. We don't have counties in Louisiana. Right. It's the parish immediately adjacent to Orleans Parish, and that's where I got my start with the coroner's office down there. I was working while I was going to college. I was working at a private hospital, and it just so happens that the morgue was being condemned or was having to be refurbished. And so this brand new hospital I was working at, they started bringing all of the coroner cases to that hospital. And I was working as an orderly, an ER tech, a security guy, a psych tech. I did everything there. And I was the one that was checking bodies in and out. And I became friends with the people at the coroner's office. And to show you how my mind works, being a college student, I started going to autopsies on my own. I wasn't getting paid or anything like that. And the forensic pathologist saw that I had kind of an aptitude for what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And I became his scribe. And many people don't know what a scribe is now, but autopsies are bloody affairs. And so that, and they don't talk into a microphone hanging down from the ceiling. It's too noisy and cluttered. As you well know, you're a sound guy. Yeah. You got stainless steel and instruments banging off of everything.
Hard
you can't
walls.
hear the tape.
Yep.
Exactly. So I was literally his scribe. I would sit there and I would write. And boy, did I get an education really quick. And I started closing for them. They taught me how to close bodies after they had done the autopsies, and I'm absorbing everything that's going on in there, everything from examination of remains to collection of evidence, the whole 9 yards. And then they had me opening bodies pretty soon, because the pathologist really doesn't open the body. It's a technician that does it, and we do the evisceration, which is the removal of organs.
Right.
And they trained me in all those aspects. And in the meantime, I became kind of an apprentice investigator for the coroner, People don't realize coroners have investigators, but they do. It's called medical legal death investigation. And I can get into that and kind of what that all entails. But I applied to be a medical legal death investigator with a coroner and got shot down twice. Both the people they hired didn't last more than 6 months. And I was just patient, kept going to autopsies. And
win by default, huh?
Third time was a charm. I wound up staying there 6-7 years, and then I got appointed as one of the senior investigators with the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office in Atlanta. So I worked in the field just over 20 years, and now I've been in academia for, I think I'm starting my 21st year in academia. I was at the University of North Georgia, which people are familiar with Dahlonega, Georgia. I was up there, started the forensics program there, and then of course Jack State came calling, made an offer I couldn't refuse. And I say New Orleans is my hometown. Jacksonville, Alabama is my home. I mean, really home and hearth. These are my people here. And they've loved me and they took care of me and my family through the tornado. We lost our house back in 2018.
Yeah. Wow.
And they always talk about, you find out who your friends are, right?
Yeah.
Real quick, and who cares about you. And I wouldn't, there ain't no way you could drag me off to any other location to work. I love it. I get other offers and all that sort of stuff, but there ain't no way.
Well,
I love being here.
Yeah, we're big fans of Jack State. Grew up there, working there now, and glad to call you a coworker. Although you're in rock star status over there where you are. But
I don't know about that.
Joe Scott, this is such an amazing story, because I'm listening to this as you're laying this out. You literally went from working the very bottom jobs at the hospital, security guard and some of these others, to actually being in there opening and closing bodies, and had an interest for that. That's an amazing elevation in your job path.
Yeah, it is. I also, and to give you an analogy, and I don't know if it's a real good one, I'll try though. I was also in the National Guard at the same time. And so when you go through Army basic or any of the basic trainings, I know Army and Marine Corps, they make you go through the gas chamber. And there are certain people that are cut out for it and other people that can't. My instructors would stand in there without a gas mask on. I became one of those people that could stand in there.
Oh, wow.
And in the morgue and be around the most horrific things that you've ever seen. And you have to be able to cut through the horror of what you're observing and try to find scientific truth in it. Because if you don't, it is going to be such a major missed opportunity that it's almost, you can't calculate it, because you never know. The smallest little thing in any case
Right.
Can turn an entire case and can turn how people view the case, whether it's prosecutors, the public, whoever it is. And so I just adapted. I had to. I've been on my own since I was very young and had to make my way, and I embraced that life. I embraced it to my own detriment,
Right.
a long time down the road. But you don't see that when you're young, right? You
Right.
don't see the impact.
No. I would have eaten better in earlier years if I knew it was going to affect me like it does now. So, Jeff Scott, you really have a heart for solving cases, for finding truth. I mean, that drives you beyond what maybe the gore or the, a lot of us that are not used to that would think, gosh, how do you do that all the time? Or how heavy does that get on you dealing with people who have been killed all the time? I mean, does that play a toll on you after a while?
Yeah, it does. I wound up back in 13. I won Georgia Author of the Year for my memoir, and I was really, and kind of bring it back to a Southern theme, which my whole life is Southern themed. I was really honored. I got to meet Pat Conroy, and that award that I won over in Georgia used to be called, until it became politically incorrect, used to be called the Dixie Writers Award.
You're right.
And that was one of the first awards that Pat Conroy won. Prince of Tides and, all those great Santini had a big impact on my life when I was a young kid. I read it, and of course, Lords of Discipline and those books. And I didn't understand. I wrote that book, and one of the reviewers, a gal, had written a review of the book, and she said that, she talked about how, there's an old adage in writing about bleeding on the keyboard. And she said, I took the Grim Reaper scythe and cut my throat and bled onto the keyboard. And I really did, because it was that memoir that I wrote is what's called, it turned out, because I didn't know what I wrote. My wife and I, when I wrote this thing, it was part of therapy. I was going to burn it. I was going to write it down and burn it and put it, let the past be the past. And one of her friends, who's a creative writer in Georgia, read it and said, "You got a book here?" And I was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" So it wound up becoming a book, and it got a lot of attention. And so I'm going a long way around the barn to kind of tell you that story, because it was, it did take a toll. It took a toll. The last time I left the medical examiner's office in Atlanta, I was in an ambulance because I thought I was having a heart attack. I thought I'd been having a heart attack for like 6 months.
Right.
And there were panic attacks. And you don't really understand, because nobody understands, even police. If you work in the medical legal field, there are no finding lost children. There's no breaking up a domestic abuse thing where you're going to rescue.
Right. Immediate gratification for your thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's death from the moment, you clock in every day. Right. It's 24/7. It's every single day of the year. It never takes a break. And so it's a burden to bear, but, going back to, where my passion lay or lies. I don't know. I'm sure some English professor out there will nail me on
Trust
that.
me, they won't look at a word that you say. They've already tuned out listening to me. Don't worry about it, Jeff Scott.
Well, who I'm really interested in are the dead.
Right.
Because they're the least among us. And it's amazing how, and I don't know, and I can get into some of these stories, but it's amazing the way the dead are treated, and how they're forgotten. And Bubba, I've stood over so many unidentified bodies in my career, both in New Orleans and Atlanta, things that were very hopeless and helpless. I felt helpless because I couldn't get them identified, and they're buried in unmarked graves. Or back years and years ago, kind of like what happened to Michael Jordan's father, over in Marlboro County, South Carolina. He was cremated, and they didn't know who he was. And we forget about the dead. Nobody thinks about the dead until it's your dead.
Right.
And then there's no advocacy that's going to step up. So I've purposed in my life that, I was given this gift for a reason. And it's rather gruesome. It is, I'll admit that. But death's always been gruesome. There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, it's just as it's just as gruesome as it's always been. So I have to offer a voice for them. Yeah,
I start to say you are the voice for the dead. You are trying to solve their mystery and find out what happened or who they were. And there's, as you said, there's not a lot of people standing up for that. You have a calling. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me. And one of the things that's always been fascinating to me is that, and I'm going to get on my soapbox here for a second, but when I see politicians, particularly at like local and county levels, they will bang the drum over something like an after-school program that they're going to fund, or a new playground,
right,
or you name it, whatever the flavor of the week has to be.
Mm-hmm.
But you never see them rushing up to the mic, say, "Hey, we're going to get a new morgue. We're going to have coolers that you don't have to use bungee cords to hold the door shut with, or that the engine, the motor, the refrigerator is going out." We're going to, the subpar conditions that these people are expected to work in, we're going to change. You don't hear that. And there was a documentary. I urge anybody, if you really want to get a view of the world that we kind of inhabit, Frontline did a video a few years back. It may have been like in 11. I used to show it in class all the time. And it's called Death Investigation in America. And there was a famous quote from the coroner of New Orleans, Dr. Mignard, who is now passed on. I knew Dr. Frank. And he said, he's talking to the reporter, right, on Frontline. Mm-hmm. And he says to the guy, he says, I want you to put this in a New Orleans accent. I want you to put this on the screen. You know, he says in big letters so everybody can understand. Dead people don't vote.
Yeah.
And that's what we're faced with out there. You know, people don't care about the dead until it's their dead, until it's somebody like me that shows up at their door to notify them.
Right.
And you see this play out, and it's a real sad state of affairs because you know, people say, you know, you can judge a society by the prisons. That's been an old adage for a long time. I submit to you can judge a society by the way they treat their dead. And it's a sad state of affairs in many places.
Our guest is Joe Scott Morgan, True Crime. If you're into that kind of podcast, you've heard him. You already know about him. He hosts Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. And we'll be back and talk more with him in just a moment.
Where's Bubba?
I'll tell you where. He's on the lake.
On the water or off, experience lake life to the fullest at Russell Lands on Lake Martin. Grab a latte at Brew 63, linger over lunch at Fanny's, or take in a Lake Martin sunset at Kalijah Restaurant. Whether you're here for the weekend or you've made your home at the lake, Russell Lands is where community and the land come together. To learn more about upcoming events, visit russelllands.com. Come see what lake life is all about.
You know one thing I love about Buffalo Wild Wings? You can get wings with any of their 26 sauces and dry rubs for takeout and delivery. That's like bringing an entire B-dubs home with you, which you can't do. I tried. I've knocked down so many walls, only to then be told to halt construction because I'm not zoned to be a sports bar. Kinda just looks like a big pergola or something because of the lack of walls. At least these 26 sauces and dry rubs are available to go. Buffalo Wild Wings. Let's go sports bar.
Dr. Dudney has been my dentist for about 20 years. He does a great job taking care of my teeth, making sure my cavities are good, cleaning my teeth, and also adding veneers to my smile, which was a game changer. Now, Dr. Dudney and his friendly staff can do the same for you. I ask you to give them a chance. Just talk to them, no cost. Just make an appointment, see what you need, see if you can have a better smile and feel better about yourself today. Give them a call at 205-663-6545 or tedudney.com. We're back with Joe Scott Morgan. He is the host of Body Bags. You probably know that podcast if you're a true crime person that likes that type of podcast. And Joe Scott, I know true crime may be the largest genre of podcast. If it's not number one, it's number two. A lot of people love that. And Joe, I've got to ask you, I knew when I was growing up, we had Quincy, was a medical examiner, and that was about it. But now there's been 50 shows with medical examiners. You guys are rock stars now. I think there may be more medical examiner shows than there are cop shows out there now. So, you are in the media now. How did that go from you just being, a medical examiner and investigator into the forefront on, like, say, Fox News, CNN, Nancy Grace, and I know you're on other things too, but that's where I see you most of the time. How did that get started?
Well, okay, this is how it kind of went down, and it's a fascinating story. I established the forensics program up at the University of North Georgia, diligently working away, trying to get my mind right and all those sorts of things. And it was in 2013, the same year that Blood Beneath My Feet won the award,
Right.
right? It's weird how life intersects.
Right,
I know you've
right.
had this, and people listening have had this happen.
Yes.
And it happened to me. I'm nothing special. It's just that it happened, all right? Your life intersects. So there was a producer at HLN, which, of course, was a subdivision of CNN.
Right. Headline news.
And it was, headline news. And, of course, they took on the mantle of kind of true crime in the early days. I had a producer that reached out to me and said, we need a medical examiner for this case that we're covering. And how would you like to, do this? And I was like, I speak in front of students every day. I've never done anything, like true crime.
Right.
Or, I've never, had to do any kind of broadcast stuff. And I said, yeah, I guess I'll give it a shot. Well, the case it turned out to be the Jodi Arias case, and that's back in 2013. And this is the woman that had, some years earlier, had killed her boyfriend, Travis Alexander, and stabbed him multiple times while he was in the shower. It was a very complex scene, and it was real soap opera-y, too.
Yeah.
Well, they had just tons of data that they needed assessed and try to understand because people were they're gobbling this stuff up, the viewers are. I said, yeah. So, Bubba, I got to tell you something. This is, you talk about country doesn't come to the city.
Yeah.
They said, well, we're going to send a car to pick you up. And I was in Dahlonega, Georgia. It's like 65, 70 miles north of Atlanta.
Right.
And, of course, they were still headquartered in Atlanta. A stretch limousine shows up for me. This is back in the day when they
That
had
didn't
money.
stand out
And I'm thinking,
in Dahlonega, did it?
no, not at all. And I'm thinking, what in the Lord? What's going on? So I get into this limousine, and I've got a stack of files that are, if you can't see me right now, I'm showing a stack of files that are over a foot thick.
Yeah.
And I'm an academic. I'm a technical guy, and I've been reading and everything I could consume. And so when I finally show up at the studio, the producer looks at me, looks at the stack of papers, and she says, you realize this hit's only 10 minutes, right? I was like, I don't know what to do. And I got the best piece of advice on the first day. Now, that doesn't happen very often, I know. The reporter that was working on the case, he looked at me, and we were going to sit at one of these big false desk things that they have that look real space age. And he said, I can tell you're nervous. And he said, you're a professor, right? I said, well, yeah, I am. He looks at me and he says, teach me. And so from that moment on, Bubba, anytime that I go on air, that's what I keep in my mind.
You're educating, yeah.
Yeah, and it helps me stay within the boundaries of where my expertise rests, as opposed to going far afield.
Mm-hmm.
And I was nervous. I was sweating like a hog, and I had all these papers laid out in front of me and whatnot. And I'll never. The guy's name's Ryan Smith. He's gone on to other things now, but he's the chief legal analyst for like ESPN. He's on ABC, Good Morning America. He was with HLN then, along with a friend of mine who I'm still very dear friends with, Vinny Politan. And many of you guys know him. He's on Court TV. He's been around for years and years, and he literally gave me my start. So it turned out where I was going to CNN headquarters to appear on HLN, it turned out to be like a weekly gig. Well, I wasn't getting paid for it, but I would go on and I would do forensic stuff.
Yeah.
And we'd do
Crime of the week,
demonstrations.
because they had plenty.
Yeah, Trayvon
right?
Martin. Yeah, they actually had a show that was called After Dark, and they impaneled a jury of viewers in studio, and they would argue one point. So I'm sitting at this big table. I'm the one forensic guy, and I'm surrounded by 7 attorneys. They're all trying to get a word in edgewise. You ever try to get a word in edgewise around a lawyer? Because they're trying to sell themselves.
Right,
That's why they're on the air. And so they finally had to do a segment. It's like, we're going to bring you over to the magic board from now on. And that way, Vinny and I would have a conversation. We did Trayvon Martin. We reenacted the shooting. And so from that, here's the thing. And I'd say this is kind of advice to anybody that wants to like pursue something you want to do. Don't say no. There's nothing, until you reach a certain level, there is nothing that is beneath you if within reason. Okay, there is nothing that is beneath you. You always be kind. You always be polite. You be prompt, and you just don't say no. And you do it to the best of your ability within your area of expertise, whatever that might be. I don't. It might be crocheting. It might be cooking. It might be death investigation, forensics. I don't know, but I've never said no. And like as of this past year, doing the calculation right now in my mind, I did 275 media appearances.
That's pretty busy
for the fiscal year of 2025. And the beauty of it is every time I go on air, they mention Jack State. And so, that's publicity that you can't go out and buy.
Yes,
our
that is
school,
correct.
We can't afford to have an ad on Fox or on the BBC, where I appear there. They will mention Jack State. And so that's the beauty of it. And I see it as an opportunity to get the word out about our university and to teach. And that's what I do.
Well, and I will say this, just being a alumni and, being a fan and a supporter beyond working there now, I'm glad that we've got you because I love seeing that. I love seeing the Jack State logo on TV when I walk by. And so tell us a little bit about Nancy Grace, though. You really got hooked up with her, and she's a real bird dog on these cases. I mean, she will not let them go.
Is.
How did you meet her and get plugged in with her?
It's an interesting story, and we've laughed about this now. Many, many years ago, she was a prosecutor in Fulton County, and I was there as a senior investigator with the NE. You're going to run across each other.
Right.
All right. And so I think it was the first and only time I ever spoke to her in that context. Everybody was aware of her. And this is before she got on court TV. Okay, but she had a reputation back then as somebody that, I know you see her on television and she is, I guess the term is bombastic. That's real.
Yeah.
That's not fake. Yes, she does have twins. Yes, she takes them to school every day. She goes grocery shopping. She is a real person, and she does in fact care about victims. I've seen her do it. I've seen her embrace people. I've seen her weep with people. This is not some kind of showy thing where she just kind of, well, next, let's bring them on. It's not like that with her. But we met when we had that conversation. She cussed me on the phone, and I hung up on her. And I reminded her of that, and she's like, because
you owe her
she asked
one.
me. Yeah, well, she asked me years later. She said, "Have we met before?" I was like, "Yeah, Nancy, we met." I said, "You cussed me on the phone. I hung up on you." She said, "Yeah, I used to be mean to people." yeah, you were. It's like I don't get paid enough to get cussed out.
Right,
so it's like, and she didn't really cuss me out. It's just like I don't have time for that.
Right.
And we developed a real collegial, and she's been very, very good to me. So I'm kind of her forensic guy on her show. And I've done her podcast, I do her television show, and that's 2 or 3 times a week. And she has been to Jack State multiple times. And as a matter of fact, she was given an honorary doctorate here.
Yeah, I know she did the commencement speech. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she has promoted Jack State unbelievably. And she believes in what we're doing, here, as an institution, because she sees the need for it, because we see failures in the system. All you got to do is look at the Guthrie case right now and how that's being handled.
Yeah.
And, there are those, what do kids say now? It's real cringe. It's a cringe moment.
Mm-hmm.
When you see people that are in charge and cases are handled like that. And so back to the relationship with Nancy, she understands that. As a matter of fact, she came here for Fox. We recreated Ellen Greenberg's kitchen. If y'all aren't familiar with the Ellen Greenberg case, this is a young woman up in Philly that was found with a knife in her chest. She had been stabbed in excess of 20 times. And the Philly ME, after a closed-door conversation, he had initially ruled it as a homicide, came back and ruled that as a suicide. And so we were on that case forever and ever. and been covering it for a long time. And, we recreated her, and that's the kind of thing that we can do, at Jack State with what we have here. And she understands that. And so when I appear on her show, I'm past the point of intimidation, relative to her. I listen to what she's saying and try to offer my 2 cents from a forensic kind of in a stable, kind of steady hand relative to the science. And again, it goes back to, if you're in the middle of a storm, if you rely on the science relative to forensics, it'll set your compass in the right direction. You turn off all the static and you look at the science. What does the science tell me? Is this plausible?
Right.
Okay. And so I stick with that with her, and we get along famously.
Joe Scott Morgan.
Subject to change, but
you never know next phone call how it's going to go, right? Joe Scott Morgan is our guest. Joe Scott, tell us a little bit, because you've mentioned Jack State. Tell us what's going on, and I know there's some changes being built around what you're doing, and it's very exciting. I've had a lot of people ask me about it.
Yeah. So we now occupy one of the oldest buildings on campus. It's right on the quad. By the way, for those who have never visited Jack State, I would argue, and I've gone to a lot of universities, just from a physical standpoint, it is one of the most beautiful campuses in the South.
I agree.
If you get a chance to come here and take a look at it, there are breathtaking vistas here. We're ringed by mountains. It is
the mountains really set it off, don't they? They're beautiful.
They do. That's why they call us the Gem of the Hills. And you know that better than I do. That's been that's a moniker that was hung on us. But with that said, you can have all the pretty pictures you want if you don't have leadership that is going to allow you to grow intellectually, and from a practice standpoint, you're dead in the water. There are all kinds of little colleges, all of these private little colleges that are in these very bucolic settings, and they don't have any students in the classroom.
Right.
So you have to have leadership that's going to push it forward, and you have to have a specific mission and deviate from that. And for us in forensics, I'm in the Department of Criminal Justice and Forensic Investigations. We're the only one of our kind in the Southeast that provides what we provide. We have 2 tracks. One is a investigator track learning. As field investigators, I call those my field mice. And then we have another track 2, which is a laboratory. I call those my lab rats. And so field mice and lab rats.
Nice names. I like
and
that.
you can choose one of those 2 tracks in forensics. And we're all self-contained here in this beautiful old building that we have on campus. We have a trace evidence lab. We have a crime scene house that's essentially a 6 or 8 room house, including like a kitchen, laundry room, bathroom.
So you can set the murder up wherever it took place.
Yeah. And we have blood spatter lab, trace evidence lab, an interview and interrogation. We even have a fully functional courtroom downstairs so that you can learn how to testify. We bring in judges and prosecuting attorneys, defense attorneys, and our students get grilled because that's a skill that you don't develop that when you go to police academy.
Right.
And so our kids get a taste of that. And then my area is I have my own cadaver lab now, and that's something that's come online. So we actually have donated human bodies that our students have access to. And so I teach a class called Medical Legal Death Investigation. I teach at an undergraduate level and a graduate level. We're about to have a graduate degree in forensic investigations. Starting in fall of 2026, I'm already teaching one of the precursors for that. And so over the course of a semester, our kids will go in with me. They'll be lectured to, and then they go in and actually do real hands-on with human remains. Folks, you talked about Quincy. There's that famous opening shot, where he's go to YouTube and watch the opening of Quincy.
Yeah.
People will understand what I'm saying. But there's a scene where he pulls out a striker saw, which is a bone saw, and he holds it up, and there's academy cadets standing around, and they all pass out. He kind of looks over the body.
I remember that.
Well, the reality is that if you go through the police academy here, I can't speak to other states, but here and in Georgia, I've taught over there too. These kids in academy get no exposure to dead bodies. There are police officers that wind up becoming investigators, that they're put into, like, in smaller departments, it'll be crimes against persons, which would handle homicides.
Right.
They've never been around a dead body. So we have this thing within us, and I think people understand this, where you're afraid of the dead. It's natural.
Right.
So if you're afraid of the dead and you show up at a scene, you've never been around a decedent, that inhibits your ability to be the best investigator that you can, because you're always thinking, I've seen too many horror movies. They're going to stand up and rip my face off. Whatever.
Right. Yeah.
You're actually safer with the dead than you ever are with the living.
That's right.
I can testify to that. So yeah, we get our kids here seasoned in that sense. So when they exit from here, they will be able to say, okay, I've been around the dead, I understand organ systems, I understand basic physiology, I understand how an autopsy works, what the purpose of it is, what can I glean from it. I know how to actually roll a fingerprint off of a dead body, which is a skill that most people do not possess. It's something you need to train our kids to do that here. I understand photography as it applies to morgue photography and death scene photography. All of these little nuanced things that we provide for them before they go out into the world. And so it's a great, it's this fantastic opportunity. And you couple that with all the other components in the forensic investigation program here, whether it's the trace lab or it's the crime scene house, the blood spatter lab, all of these different areas, and it all comes together. So when a kid, walks across that stage, I'm proud of the product,
right?
That we're going to push out, because they're like, students that graduate from me, and I've been doing this for over 20 years. I view them as like little bitty sailboats that we're kind of putting knowledge into, and then we're putting them out to the tide, and they're going to go worldwide. I got kids that work in Africa. I've got kids that have worked in Russia, Southeast Asia, all over South America. Wherever I have been, they say, I received this training there.
Right.
And so that's something that lasts for a long, long time. And so you want to turn out a good product. And people might take exception to saying that, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a product of the institution you come from.
Absolutely.
And I view it that way. Yeah.
We're talking with Joe Scott Morgan, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Joe, I want to ask you about some of the cases you're dealing with now, and maybe a few historical cases that we've talked about a little bit in the past. We'll be right back in just a minute.
It's Bubba on the Lake. Bubba on the Lake.
Just got that new boat? Let Sunrise Docks protect your investment with Swift Shield boat covers, Neptune boat lifts, and easy ports for your personal watercraft. Plus, they have composite decking that stays cool, designed with your feet in mind. Sunrise Docks is always first in quality, first in service, and first in customer satisfaction. Right off Highway 63, your Lake Martin headquarters, with 2 barges and the most experienced boat lift crew on the lake. Sunrise Docks is your lake life expert. Call 256-392-5200.
On the water or off, experience lake life to the fullest at Russell Lands on Lake Martin. Spend your mornings with breakfast at Fanny's. Afternoons, you can explore over 100 miles of trails through Russell Forest. And for dinner, how about the Southern farm-to-table flavors at Spring House? Whether you're here for the weekend or you've made your home at the lake, Russell Lands is where community and the land come together. To learn more about upcoming events, visit russelllands.com. Come see what lake life is all about.
Since 1965, Bice Motors has been Lake Martin area's home for Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram sales and service. For 60 years, families have trusted Bice Motors in Alexander City for honest deals, friendly service, and the best selection around. Our team of certified technicians services most all makes and models. Plus, we've got a tire center, parts department, and a full collision center to keep you rolling. Bice Motors, your hometown Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram dealer since 1965. In Alex City or online at bicemotors.com.
Buy it at Bice. Bice Motors.
Joe Scott, there's several high-profile cases that I know you've been dealing with out here, and probably the one that has most notable may be the Guthrie disappearance. What are you following on that case?
Well, I mean, where to start? I guess.
Yeah.
I'm following everything from, well, obviously where she is at this point to where did it go wrong, and I really take exception when people say, well, it's really easy to Monday morning quarterback. I'm not Monday morning quarterback. We're in the middle of the game.
Right.
And to use that analogy, obviously her disappearance is not a game, but just using a football metaphor there, because, it's like a fly stuck on flypaper. The more it moves, the stucker it gets.
Right.
And
right.
I literally see that played out in this case. I'm just, as our British friends say, I've been gobsmacked relative to the problems, that have occurred along the way. The biggest one is something that's very basic that we teach here at Jack State, and that's scene security. It's, there's a reason you see yellow tape, right? And that means that this is our side, that's your side. And in the initial part to this case, they treated it as if it was, I don't even think they treated it as a kidnapping initially. They treated it as a missing elderly person.
Right.
And people say, well, you got to cut them some slack. Yeah, I might. However, when you walk out to the front door and you see blood deposition in front of the front door and you don't have her, the question is, why didn't you lock it down?
Yeah.
And why didn't you not keep it locked down? Because, they went in initially, worked the house, worked the scene, air quotes there, and then released it. And you've got video of a pizza boy showing up, pool guy coming, 2 pool guys coming in, and this is into the scene, into this, I view it as kind of a sacrosanct environment that you're walking into. And people are coming in and out of the house. You got family members coming in and out. So anything with any evidentiary value,
right,
is kind of blown at this point.
Right.
And I want folks to understand this. The world that we live in now relative to forensics is not like it was when I started, okay? If people will just imagine going into a crime scene now is almost like going into a surgical suite, because we're not just working cases from those things that can be seen. We're working based on things that cannot be seen.
Right.
You could say that that's always been the case, but when you get into things like touch DNA, deposition of microscopic evidence that, now we have the ability to pick up on, molecular evidence, all that stuff, every scene has to be treated that way. And so the first warning shot that you have here is that you've got blood deposition out in front of that front door. And I have my own thoughts about what the origin of that is and, kind of how it looks, how that blood spatter, if you will, looks.
It tells a story, right? I mean, it got there.
Yeah,
something had to cause
blood,
it.
Yeah, blood always tells a story. For me, that blood is going to be, there's a way we kind of view blood and how it's deposited. And people have heard about blood spatter and all that stuff. This is a very kind of passive blood deposition that you have here. Don't believe me. I always tell my students this, go look it up yourself.
Right.
And by the way, the images, to give you an idea of how unsecured that scene is or was and is now, it's been released now. The images that you see on the news, that's from a reporter.
Right.
Those are not crime scene images.
Right.
So you had a reporter that was able to get close enough to take these images at the scene, and now they're everywhere. But when you look at those, even though they're not the highest quality, a couple of things you pick up on real quick is that there's no what we call directional spatter. Like if you have like a firearm event where you got high velocity deposition, or somebody swings a baseball bat and they make contact, that's medium velocity. This stuff, this blood deposition, we know it's hers, by the way. It was tested. It's falling directionally, it's falling straight down. And they're about, I don't know, they're probably about, the big droplets look like they're probably about the size of a nickel, maybe. And then if you look real close, you'll see these little tiny, tiny depositions that are in there, like really tiny blood droplets. That comes about as a result of coughing or sneezing, clearing your nose.
Right.
It has some velocity behind it. You see it a lot with trauma. Somebody's been popped in the face, popped in the nose. We've all had nosebleeds at some point in time, and that's deposited right there. And so there's some kind of activity going on there. Was it there prior to the event? Possibly. But here's the other thing. In the video with the Nest camera where this specter comes out of nowhere and they're trying to cover that camera,
right?
They go off camera and grab a handful of weeds, and they're trying to obscure that camera,
right?
Okay, and which they eventually wind up disabling, and that data was sent up to a cloud, so they
couldn't get it.
Yeah. Well, no, they secured the imagery. That's why we have it. But they pulled that camera loose. You could tell somebody was aware of it. Well, what I'm saying is, along with the blood, this reason I'm going back to scene security, that blood is there, but also, Bubba, those weeds he pulled up, they're all deposited right there.
Yeah.
And that stuff was collected.
Right.
And the blood is next to a big black doormat. That doormat was not collected.
I mean, all of that needs to be brought in, right, and reconstructed in the lab.
Absolutely, because that's going to give you an insight. And looking at the Nest camera now, the footage, you can see him stepping on all of the ceramic tiles that are out there. There's some grout, and you've got the standard, and forgive me, I'm not a builder. I can't remember the dimensions of a big tile, but you can see where he's putting his feet. If they had locked that thing down and gotten that stuff off the cloud and avoided that area to walk on, the cops, that sort of thing. You know, we could have gone out and done electrostatic lifts. They could have, not me. We do it here at Jack State. Our students learn how to do it. Electrostatic lifts on those ceramic tiles, and you could have gotten a footprint off of that. He's walking in off of dust onto ceramic tile.
Right.
That's like easy peasy. 101 stuff.
Right. So
was here. You got an elderly lady that some neighbors say they didn't even know she was Virginia's daughter, or they didn't know that this was Virginia's mama. She's living alone in this house. Out of all the houses there in Tucson in that neighborhood, she was targeted for some reason. All right. And, you know, I didn't just fall off a turnip truck. There's got to be a reason why that particular little old lady who's non-ambulatory to a great degree has to walk with either a walker or a cane. She's got a myriad of physical problems, everything. She's on blood thinner. She's on hypertension medication. She's still got her wits about her. She's communicative. Even that morning, that Sunday morning, she was going to go with some of her friends to their house to participate in church service that Savannah participates in person in New York. And so they would all get together and have church at this house, and they couldn't find her. You know, that's how, you know, they started bird dogging this thing and realized that, you know, can't find her anywhere. So yeah, it's going to just the screw ups on the front end. If they do find her, I don't have a lot of hope for her state, if you know what I mean.
Right.
I don't, you know.
It's just drug on so long, you know.
And hold somebody responsible, they're going to have a problem prosecuting this thing because there's so many foul ups along the way.
You know, we had discussed some other historical high-profile cases, and when you were talking about securing the scene, the John Bonet Ramsey was a total flop, right? I mean, they blew that day one.
Yeah, they did. They did, and I show no mercy, okay, as an instructor.
Sure.
At all, because you can't afford to say, well, we didn't think about this. The time for thinking about it is before you show up. You go to work every single day thinking that today I'm going to work a major case. And I don't care if you live in Dogpatch. It doesn't matter, because we found out real quick that bad things happen in Dogpatch as well.
Yes.
It's not just in big cities.
Right.
And I have a heart for rural investigators, because they have to work with very little. And sometimes they're everything all in one. Okay. So there's no excuse for what happened with the Ramsey case. They had everybody and their brother in that house. They did not lock down that house.
Right.
You've got a note that's actually found laying on the treads of the interior staircase with specific knowledge about how much Mr. Ramsey, and I've been on a panel with John Ramsey. I know him, not personally, but I've spoken with him on several occasions. They did a horrible job of locking us down. And wow, imagine that. They find her body in the basement
right.
of the same house where they're drinking coffee and eating Christmas cakes or whatever they were doing in there that morning. And no one took the initiative on it, really. And that thing got blown from the beginning. A lot of it came down to personalities. It still comes down to personalities. Nobody wants to look bad in it. But again, that goes back to being an advocate for the dead, right?
Right. You got to follow the facts.
Yeah, you have to. And I don't, I don't really care about your reputation or about, what political aims you have or how it's going to give you or your Department of Black Eye. You're talking about a person that's dead, a little girl in this case. And because you did not catch this individual, and I want people to hear this very clearly, because you did not do your job at the beginning, this individual developed a taste for this. And I don't know what has happened since then.
Yeah.
So you have to look at these things from that perspective.
Right.
Because if you screw it up from the beginning, if you go in haphazardly, you don't follow just some of the basic tenets of crime scene investigation and security, you're leaving the door open. You don't know what you're opening the door to, because this is evil. All right. And as you know, if you open the door to evil, more evil comes in behind it.
Oh, yeah. Never takes a holiday.
Those little things, you're right. Every little thing that we do as investigators, you have to watch it that way and see that, you don't know how it's going to ring down, for years and years. Just recently in the news, they found, one more victim of Ted Bundy. That was last week. She died in 1974, and they were able to tie her back to him all these years later.
So
that's kind of world that we live in now.
Joe Scott, let me ask you this on the John Bonet Ramsey, because everybody's familiar with that, and it has been documented and redocumented and all that. And I know you can't prosecute the case like you would like to now because of lost evidence, but armchair it a little bit. Tell me what you think, just you personally think happened in that.
This is what I think happened. I think that whoever perpetrated this homicide had very intimate knowledge of this house. Years ago, I was on a program with the senior officer that showed up, the first one that showed up. There was a young lady that was newer. She's the first one to go across the doorstep into the house when the call came up. He followed right behind her. I'm not saying he was like an FTO, field training officer, but he was there. He was a senior person. And even in that conversation that I had with him on air on this program I was on, he talked about the missteps. But back to what you were saying, that house, according to him and according to what I've read, is incredibly complex of a structure. All right. So when you see the former Ramsey home, you just see this kind of gingerbread looking, I don't know what you call it, Tudor style kind of cottage looking thing. It's very deceiving. This thing is massive, and it's multi-storied. There are two sets of staircases in this thing. You kind of got like a butler staircase, that you can move unseen throughout the house, the primary staircase, and there's multiple levels to it. So for me as an investigator, particularly when you consider where she was found, in that, what they refer to as the train room, somebody had to have very, very, very intimate knowledge of this home.
So
they had to have been there and inhabited that space.
So that would be family or people that work for them that might be at their house, right? I mean, it's a fairly small group, what you're saying.
Very tight group. And, these people were not from there, okay? The Ramseys were not from there. I think, they lived in, I think they lived in Atlanta for a period of time. I remember I was on duty with the ME's office in Atlanta when Patsy died. She was in hospice.
Right.
And
then she got blamed for a lot of this. A lot of people thought she was the person involved or knew who did it.
Yeah, I've heard that. Of course, the brother.
Right.
Major lawsuit came out of that
right.
relative to CBS. I always thought that they did that program. If anybody saw that program, they had the people that were the forensics people that were on that they were covering it. I really thought that CBS, they had to understand the risk that they were taking
of actually pointing out who they thought did it. Right?
I think that they were trying to draw people out with it, and they wound up drawing somebody out. They drew out an attorney, and I think that the brother wound up suing them for $700 million.
Oh yeah, it was huge,
astronomical amount. They wound up settling. Werner. One of the modern godfathers of forensic pathology, he wrote the seminal text on medical legal death investigation. He was the chief ME for Detroit for years and years. He was on that program. He was very aged when you saw him, and he's the one that did the demonstration. I don't know if you recall this, Bubba, or if people recall this, the demonstration with the flashlight, striking down on the head. It was very controversial. They had a kid that came in that was like a facsimile of the brother and had the kid hold a flashlight and strike it down like this. They really rolled the dice with this thing. And so, but I still go back to the idea that whoever did this had intimate knowledge of that environment, because this is not, this isn't like your brother's trailer house out on the lake somewhere.
Right.
They go on weekends. There's not one, two doors where you just kind of walk down. There's
be easy to get lost in there.
And you got the
right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's a maze. I mean, it really is. It's complex. And plus you were having to do this at night, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're navigating this area. And the other thing is that you're not going to go around flipping lights on.
Right.
The note has always bothered me, because it was found in such an intimate space. And this thing is, by ransom note standards, this thing is verbose. I mean, it goes on. It's a page and a half, I think.
Right.
It had very specific information about John Ramsey's bonus that year.
Mm-hmm.
They claimed that they found the notepad
that it was written on.
That was their notepad,
mm-hmm.
the family's notepad, and it was impression evidence on the backside where you could see the pressure points from the pen writing the thing.
So he didn't write it till he was in their house.
Who shows up for a kidnapping,
right?
And they're going to write the kidnapping note where the target is. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's just very strange.
The whole thing, really stinks for me. And then they claim that they have, this is the big thing out there that's still hanging in the air. And John Ramsey has been, think of him as you may, he has constantly talked about he wants to get this thing resolved. And they have this DNA evidence that they allegedly have that they have been teasing everybody with for a protracted period of time, that they're going to try to get people to run. They've always been very hesitant about calling the feds in to bring their resources in. First, it was the locals fighting with the state police, then the state police fighting with the locals, and you've got this clash of personalities. The original guy that you saw that was in all of the video clips, he had the wireframe glasses.
Mm-hmm.
He was a prosecutor. He's dead now. He's no longer with us. The guy that actually began to work this. One of the initial investigators that they brought in, that was this renowned investigator, that he looked at it. He's dead now. So, as time goes by.
Sure. It's been a while, been a minute.
It's becoming a faded memory. And that's all sad, and I'm sorry to hear that, but my biggest concern from a forensic standpoint is what's the status of all that evidence.
Right.
Where is it? Because now, you cannot say now that we don't have the technology to solve something. I cover what are called Othram cases every day. I'm a big supporter. I've got a big announcement coming up about Jack State and Othram, by the way, pretty soon. I believe in what they're doing, and they're doing forensic genetic genealogy. And they can take degraded DNA now, even the smallest sample. It's not like back in the day during the O.J. Simpson time,
Right.
Where like you might need a blood droplet the size of a quarter in order to facilitate some type of DNA profile. Now we can do it at a microscopic level with a tiny sample. They claim they have DNA. I want to know what status of it is, how is it being protected, and are they going to submit it for, that DNA that is there, are they going to submit it for genealogical testing?
Right.
And that'll, you create a family tree that way. And next thing you know, you've got third and fourth cousins that are pointing the finger at you. All right, that's how precise this thing gets.
All right.
They can fold that thing back out and say, this guy's kin, whoever deposits this is kin to these people that have entered their stuff into this database. And we're going to start pulling that through. That's what they did with Koberger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing how technology has carried this. Joe Scott Morgan is our guest. If you're a true crime fan, you already know that name. You've seen him on Fox. You've seen him on CNN. Joe Scott, we could talk for hours. And I promised I wouldn't keep you but about an hour today. But
let's do it.
We want to let's do this. I want to book a time, get you back, and I want to talk about some current cases and also some of these historical cases like John Benet Ramsey and of course JFK. We've sit around and armchaired that one too, which I have a real interest in that. So
I got an idea for your listeners.
Okay,
send Bubba some questions.
Yeah,
send Bubba some questions.
Sure,
I'll be glad to to answer anything you got within reason.
Absolutely. Bubba at BubbaOnTheLake.com. Joe Scott Morgan, thank you. I know you got classes to teach and some other things. Thank you for taking time with us, and we will definitely have you back in the near future.
Brother. Thank you for having me on.
You're listening to Bubba. Whoa. Bubba on the Lake.
What a matchup we've got, folks. Just nonstop action. The energy is electric and the fans are all in. An intense game like this calls for a Coca-Cola. Crisp and refreshing. That's a game changer. Yeah, that taste scores every time. And just like that, they're back at it. Passionate fans and an ice-cold Coca-Cola. Now that's a winning combo. No matter the team, no matter the sport, everyone knows fan work is thirsty work. Enjoy a Coca-Cola.
Illuminate your night fishing adventures with the ultimate in submersible fishing light technology. The Green Monster Fishing Light attracts bait fish and game fish in all water environments. Turn any dock into a vibrant feeding frenzy. Compact, tough, and energy efficient. The Green Monster Fishing Light will provide endless hours of family entertainment and enhanced nighttime visibility for safe docking. No dock, no problem. With our 24-inch portable Green Monster Fishing Light, start landing trophy fish tonight. Visit thegreenmonsterfishinglight.com.
On the water or off, experience lake life to the fullest at Russell Lands on Lake Martin. Want to know what's going on around Lake Martin? Check out the calendar of seasonal events that include Fridays on the Green, naturalist events, fireworks, concerts, poker runs, boat shows, juried art shows, boat parades, and much more. If you're here for the weekend or if you've made your home at the lake, Russell Lands is where community and the land come together. To learn more about upcoming events, visit russelllands.com. Come see what lake life is all about. Well, all right, folks, that will just about do it for this edition of Bubba on the Lake. Thank you for being here with us. We appreciate it. Keep the cards and letters coming, as they say. The address is Bubba at BubbaOnTheLake.com. You also can leave a comment at 308 Big Lake. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, we remind you to turn on notifications, follow us on social media, all of that, stuff that you do figures into the bigger equation of helping us to promote this podcast and keep it on the air. We also want to thank all of our sponsors. You've heard them during the show. If you need their services, we ask that you reach out to them. And even if you don't, maybe let them know you appreciate them sponsoring the podcast. We sure do appreciate them. So, folks, we're going to wrap it up here. And reminder again, we want to congratulate, and let me get his name correct here. It is, well, I had it. I can't find it now. Tyler, let's see. Tyler Brown, that's right. The student at Ohio State University. And he was the winner of our bracket challenge. We're going to be getting him $500. And we're also going to talk with him probably on the next podcast about how he did his picks. And he did an amazing job. And it had to be hard for him to pick Michigan, being that he is an Ohio State student. So we'll dive into that also on the next podcast. So until we sail into port again, remember, God loves you. We do too. And thank you for being part of Bubba on the Lake.
This podcast is brought to you in part by Russell Lands, Coke, Buffalo Wild Wings, Southern Immediate Care, Guaranteed Labels, Central State Bank, Sunrise Docks, Dr. Thomas Dudney, and the Green Monster Fishing Light.
B-U-double-B-A on the lake, hey. Wishing I could listen to the show every day, hey. Gotta hear what Bubba and his buddies gotta say on B-U-double-B-A on the lake. In the mellow yellow studio, putting on a show. Betty say, what? She always on the go. We got Hunter Bus sitting at master control. Don't wanna miss a moment, cause Bubba's got the flow. B-U-double-B-A on the lake, hey. Wishing I could listen to the show every day, hey. Gotta hear what Bubba and his buddies gotta say on B-U-double-B-A on the lake, hey. B-U-double-B-A, hey. B-U-double-B-A, hey. B-U-double-B-A, hey. B-U-double-B-A on the lake, hey.